Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the regular town board, Ulysses Town Board meeting. Today is March 8th, 2022, and it is 7 p.m. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on YouTube for posterity. So welcome to anybody who is watching it either presently or after the fact. So I will call us to order at 7:01 p.m. And Madam Clerk, do you mind reading the roll call, please?
Sure. Ms. Marino,
Here.
Ms. Olson,
Present.
Mr. Goldman.
Here.
That's it so far.
We have a meeting agenda. It was posted, let me turn down my notifications. It was posted last week. Today I made a small alteration to it and notified the board of requesting an executive session that is related to a potential matter concerning public safety. And so with that is the one alteration to the posted agenda that I would like to make. Does anybody else have any questions or alterations requested to the agenda? Then I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Excellent. We're going to move on to privilege of the floor. Is there anyone from the public who's wishing to address us on any matter before us or not before us? There will be a second privilege of the floor near the end of the meeting. So if you have additional thoughts that come to you in the process, we'll have an opportunity to do that, but I don't see anybody raising their hand or otherwise indicating that they're interested, so we'll move on. I'm pleased to welcome Fernando from the Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council, and I am so grateful that you were able to join us today for a brief presentation about the good work you're accomplishing down there.
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great, excellent. Well, thank you for having me. I'm spending some time reaching out to different municipalities in the county to sort of reintroduce my agency and answer any questions folks may have. We're a bit of an obscure agency, so as you get new people or if you've never dealt with us, you may not know about it. So I have a short PowerPoint I'd like to use. Can I share the screen?
Yes.
Right. Very good. You're seeing this?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, the agency I run is the Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council. We are located, our offices are in Ithaca, in the city. We are what is called a metropolitan planning organization. MPOs, and when you live in transportation, you live in a world of acronyms. So the MPOs, a metropolitan planning organization, is what we are. MPOs are created by congressional, that's a congressional requirement for places that are 50,000 population or more in the urbanized area. The urbanized area of Ithaca reached that level 30 years ago, in 1992 actually, with the 1990 census. And at that time, the agency was created. What MPOs do is they supervise and they plan for the programming of federal surface transportation funds. So we basically are a mechanism that provides a local voice to the expenditure of federal transportation dollars. We do planning, we provide technical assistance to local governments, and we work to further the goals in our plans. And I'll get into that in a second. There are 14 MPOs in New York. All your favorite urban areas probably have one. We are the smallest. And at the other end of the spectrum is New York City. And we all work together with DOT in a number of initiatives New York State is, I would say, exemplary in the way that the MPOs collaborate and the way they collaborate with New York State, with the DOT, with the state DOT. So that's a good thing. Our agency is very small, like I said. We have a staff of 3, but our decision-making committees are where a lot of the work gets done. We have a planning committee that does a lot of the technical review and recommendations to policy. And policy is the final decision-making body. That's where resolutions are passed and amendments are completed. There's a lot of details here, but that's the general picture. And staff provide support to the committees and the overall efforts of the agency. We have some mandates that we need to fulfill. The feds require that we have a long-range transportation plan, a 20-year plan, and that exists. Also by regulation, they require that we have a 5-year transportation improvement program, that TIP, that includes projects for highway and transit in the community using surface transportation dollars. We don't deal with anything that has to do with aviation, and we only touch rail when at the crossings where roads cross rail lines. You may see the use of some other funding that we manage. In larger urban areas that have passenger rail and passenger transit, you will see funding flowing through the MPO there, but we don't have that here. And the UPWP is basically our annual work program, and we have to produce one of those. All these things are required by federal regulation, and what they look like and what is included in there is also sort of prescribed. I want to show you a page of the Transportation Improvement Program, because this document is the teeth of our agency. I mean, this is where we program money, actual dollars that are identified for specific phases of projects for specific dates, using particular funding sources. I picked this particular project because it was sort of a good example of a project that appears in the TIP, and it goes from your scoping and design phases down to construction and inspection. We update this document every 2 years. We are supposed to be updating it this year. We're waiting on the state to tell us how much money is available for our use. So every 2 years, we update this 5-year program, and the years in the document, the years that are listed here, this federal fiscal years, kind of roll as we move through the years. If there's any questions, feel free to ask, and we can always come back to any of these slides. There's a lot of complexity. The feds are a big bureaucracy, so I'm sorry, somebody trying to?
Yeah, question.
So the 50,000 person rule, how does that get circumscribed by area?
The Census Bureau, so it's all based on census numbers. The Census Bureau identifies what they call the urbanized areas around the country. An urbanized area, they follow a formula that's based more than anything on density, either population density or housing density. And they apply that formulas, and when you have contiguous densities that reach 50,000, then you have a census designated urban area. There are other designations. You may have heard of micropolitan areas, and those are usually smaller, like 5,000 to 50,000. And there are large urban areas that are above 200,000.
So is your purview all of Tompkins County?
At this time, yes. I'm sorry, I should have indicated that. Yes, even though the urban area population sort of triggered the MPO designation, our planning area is county-wide. And in our case, just one county. Other MPOs in larger areas or more complex areas will extend multiple counties. That's sort of a local decision. So any other questions right now? So in this slide, just kind of showing a little complexity of the different types of funding that come through. And every one of those funding lines, whether it's HSIP or HPP, all of these have sort of different rules on how they get used, where they get applied, how they can get applied. I shouldn't criticize bureaucracy too much. It helps me keep my job, but sometimes I wonder about the level of complexity, because at the end of the day, what everybody would love to have is what's called flexible funding, where you can basically use it where you need it. And the MPO process goes a little bit in that direction by having local people identifying where projects are needed, but it'd be nice if the funding lines would catch up to that philosophy. In any case, the long-range plan that we have, which was completed a couple of years ago, gets redone every 5 years. If you want to distill the plan to 3 statements, this is it. It's all about maintaining critical infrastructure, promoting multiple mobility options, basically giving people an option to a car-only transportation system, and engaging the community in collaboration. In a small MPO, we're kind of dealing with macro problems, and an agency like mine with staff of 3 has very limited capability. The only way that we get a lot of things done here, and we do quite a bit in this county, is engaging the community, and not just municipalities, but there's a lot of nonprofits that are engaged in transportation, places like Ithaca Car Share, Bike Walk Tompkins. We have a myriad of trail support groups. I mean, all these groups, all these people are engaged in one way or another in supporting the goals of the long-range plan. And I have permission through that plan to help them and work with them, provide assistance as we further the goals of the plan. Again, in short, the benefits of participating in our process, and Michelle Wright, Michelle has been in our committee for a number of years, are having a seat at the table. We meet we alternate the committees in their meetings, so we meet at least once every 2 months. We have contact with peers. We have a DOT at the table. The feds are at the table, who can review each other's projects and know what everybody's up to. So that helps a lot. We keep informed about funding opportunities. Is something particularly this year with the infrastructure bill from the feds. There's a lot of money that's starting to flow, and I'm trying to keep everybody appraised. In fact, we're having a meeting next week, which the only agenda item is to talk about some of the grants that are coming up from the federal, from Washington. And of course, all this communication serves to enhance regional coordination. I must say that TCAT is also at the table, so we have strong transit representation, and overall, the Transportation Council has very, very supportive of TCAT and its mission over the years. This is my contact information. This is all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions or engage in any conversation you like. We understand that if there's a benefit I have a benefits page. I don't include it because it's kind of maybe a little counterproductive, but there are challenges to the use of federal dollars. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved in them. There's a lot of complexities. And often rural municipalities don't have the capacity in staff to manage a project, although it kind of corresponds often. The federal projects are usually designed for larger projects. The federal monies work best with larger projects, and those tend to exist more often than not in the urban areas, although there are a million exceptions to that. Case in point is the bridge over Salmon Creek that is right now under construction in Lansing, which is the biggest bridge project we've had in the county in about 20 years. So, so if there's any questions, I'm happy to address. I'm going to stop. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I've been recently reviewing federal funds, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said about the amount of money and the capacity is really high with federal grants. And I wondered, have there been examples in the county of multiple municipalities partnering on a larger scale project because individually they can't meet the thresholds in their own community for a single thing? So is that something that happens that you've seen?
That happens when the project is, it kind of benefits both municipalities. It's hard to enlist the participation of one municipality for a bridge, let's say, that is completely within your town. You know, why would, I don't know, town of Lansing contribute as if it was one of their projects? However, saying that, I know that the county has offered assistance, and they have worked with Newfield in particular to help shepherd a project through the process. And I know that other municipalities have been available to provide assistance as a professional courtesy. For example, the city of Ithaca has a lot of experience with these projects, and I often tap their shoulder and say, can you speak with somebody over here who's, you know, needs help in some particular aspect or a particular step of the process. That said, that's another example. You find places where there's projects that are at boundaries and that have possibly ownership or or jurisdiction of more than one municipality. And those, yeah, you find cooperation in making something happen. There's been a couple of trail projects with the town of Ithaca and Ithaca having joint jurisdiction. We're looking at a project right now that has the town of Ithaca, Cayuga Heights, DOT, and the city of Ithaca all having, you know, like some jurisdiction because it touches on a part of each. It's kind of like this corner over by near the visitor center, and East Shore Drive. All the municipalities kind of come together at one point there. So they're all impacted. So that just requires a little more coordination. At the end of the day, there's usually one project sponsor. You know, one sort of responsible party who signs the contracts and whatever. But you may have more than one stakeholder involved in the project.
Great, thank you. I appreciate those examples. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, question. Where's the microphone? Is it close by? How are you guys funded?
We are funded with federal funds. So the same money that funds the bridges and the roads and all, there's a fraction of a percent of the national funds that goes to metropolitan planning organizations.
Okay.
So our agency does not utilize or does not budget any local or county monies or state monies for that matter. So federal money always has to have like a match, a local match, and the matches that we use are in kind. For example, we're located in a county building, a county office building with the county planning department, that same building. And I don't pay rent. That rent is sort of the county's in-kind contribution, along with some other services that we get from them. Yeah, so, but the actual operating budget comes from the feds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I don't.
Excellent. Well, thank you
Well,
so
thank-
much for tonight. It's always good to see what's happening in parts of our community, and you were absolutely right. Michelle Wright has been our liaison, and we appreciate what you're doing and look forward to continuing to discuss how we can potentially move forward with federal funding and with your assistance. So thank you for
Great.
joining us
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
tonight.
Good night.
Excellent. We're going to move on to liaison and chair reports. Is there, I see our legislator Corman is present. I wondered if you would like to go first.
Sure, thank you. And I want to apologize for missing last month. I was out of town and I was trying to get into the meeting and I saw that some things were moved and in the email. And I was out of anyway, so I just said, okay, there wasn't a lot. So I just figured I'd just show up this month. So I'm sorry about that. So let's see. A couple of things that I'll focus on. One is we've been doing a lot with the reimagining public safety. I don't bring it up very often, but you know, the county and the city has been working on that quite a bit. And we hired a new staff person, jointly with the city to work on that, just specifically after we've developed most of the plan. And she's going to continue to work with the community and including reaching out now, which is a thing I've been hoping is going to happen sooner than later. But it's finally happening to reach out to the municipalities to try and figure out how to work jointly together with that. So things are smoother, things are consistent, things are more equitable. So especially the municipalities that have public safety departments. But also I'm asking to reach out to municipalities, even if you don't, like the town of Ulysses doesn't have their own, but I'm hoping they'll reach out to you also so everybody's included and knows the things that we're trying to work on. And of course, more importantly is to give input too. Let's see, I don't know if there's anything new financially, but last month we did hear about the end of the year reports from our finance department, and we had more income coming in than we had budgeted for. So that's good as far as sales tax and room tax. So that's good. We are hoping that that continues through this year as we budgeted in anticipation of that this coming year. So we're hoping things are going to continue in that way. As I mentioned before, we have a community grant program, a community recovery grant program that we're working on. And so I'm just going to give you the update of where we are so far. We're not very, I don't think very progressed, but I'll just keep you updated with what information we do have. So we're working right now with trying to find a consultant. We've put out some RFPs before, and we had to revise it as we revised what we are thinking. And after input from some of the agencies that did give us quotes for administering the grants. So right now, what we're looking at as a total of between $6 and $6.5 million that we're going to put into this recovery grant program. The smallest grants will be between 10 and 25,000, and we'll have about 500,000 in that bucket. And then the next size bucket will be between 25,000 and 250,000. And there'll be 1.5 million in that bucket. And then the highest bucket is over 250,000. And there will be about 4 million in that. And why we don't have the exact figures is because we're not sure exactly how much it's going to cost to hire an agency to administer all the grants, and where exactly we're going to take that money from, whether it's going to be from the money that we set aside for the grants or somewhere else. And the last major thing was, and then two last things. You've probably, I know you're all kept up on COVID, but if you have any questions, the county is not in a high state of alert anymore. So we have done what the CDC and the state has recommended for a low risk area, is that we've gotten rid of the mask mandate. We're encouraging people still to wear masks when you're with people inside, especially if they're not in your family unit. I have noticed that it's really mixed depending on where I've gone. Hardly, sometimes I'm the only one that's wearing a mask. In other places, there's quite a few people. So we're asking the public, and I just keep asking people, is to be patient. I did actually go over to a friend's house who was like, you can try to tell me like 5 different ways of why I could take my mask off. And so I did not take my mask off because I didn't feel comfortable. But so I'm just asking for people to, not do that, not put pressure on people, and just to be okay. It doesn't matter their reason. If they want to keep their mask on, please be supportive of that. And the last thing I want to mention, I went to TC3 yesterday, and they have a new workforce development plan. And we at the county helped fund a new position to work on that. And I'll try and give you the smallest condensed version of it that I can think of. But basically, it's to try and fill in these gaps that we've been seeing in our county and in Cortland County also, that you might have a job. I'll give you for instance, like say a job installing solar panels locally. They have jobs, but they don't have people qualified to take those jobs. And so you might not need a 2-year degree or even need to go through a trades program, but to try and break that down to, it might be like 6 credits or something like that, to help you get the entry, to get you eligible to get like an entry level. So they're going to create like micro certifications in various things. And each of those are going to be pieces of a puzzle that could get you a full degree. If you say later on, hey, I want to continue this, you don't have to start over. You want to get a larger certification or an advanced certification or a degree, you can use all those pieces to also get a degree. So I am really excited about that. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. So Ann, for the community assistance grants, are they who applies for them? Individuals or municipalities or organizations or all of the above?
I've pretty much told you all that I know so far. And no, that's a good question that everybody asks that. And right now it's still wide open. Right. So could be a municipality, a hospital, a person, an agency. So it could be a business, nonprofit, could be, so right now it's still open. And but I wanted to give you the information as we have it, and then I will just keep giving you more, and hopefully the next update, we will have more specific information, especially like that, like who can apply.
Excellent. Anything else?
And who's in charge of that process, Ann?
Let's see, our committee, our budget and finance committee is overseeing that. Also, they're working with our administration, and they also it's going through the whole legislature, which is why it's taking a long time to get it all together, because we all have to agree on each piece going forward. And so we're looking at, we still don't have the agency hired yet that's going to administer it for us. So they're going to do it jointly with us. So we just don't have that agency yet. Is that what you were wondering at the county? Who's doing it?
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of us, which makes it cumbersome.
So if we had say a suggestion or a thought about something related to, what a type of group that might be able to plug into this, would we just give it to you at this point? Or somebody else? at the county?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think right now we've thought of all, what we think are the obvious things, but if there's something that we haven't thought of that you want to make sure, hey, make sure you do it so this type of organization is not excluded, or, something like that, sure.
Okay, great.
I'm trying to put the word out to all kinds of groups, that I'm involved with. So, and feel free to share that, because it could be childcare, it could be a business recovering from COVID, it could be a business wanting to expand, it could be, an environmental group wanting to do a certain thing. It's really, and we're calling it recovery, but it doesn't necessarily so far need to have been something that was having to do with recovery from COVID. So it could be something totally different.
And is this funding stream coming through the ARPA funds or something else?
Indirectly, absolutely. We took our money and put it towards capital programs, and then we took other money, which winds up being the same kind of money, but we decided separately to make this grant funding for the community, not directly ARPA money, so that we could be more flexible in it. And also we don't have the onerous requirements of reporting this all to the state.
Got it. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here, and we hope you had a wonderful vacation. I hope it was someplace warm.
Yes, Florida, yes, thank you.
Oh, good. I remember it being chilly that night here, so great. Thank you. I see Mr. Devokadis is present, if you'd like to report on sustainability. Or anything else.
I don't have too much. I wanted to just say thank you on behalf of the Sustainability Committee for the excellent representation at the Camp Barton meeting. That was really great to see that strong support, and everybody on the committee was really pleased about that. So thank you. Looking forward to hearing how that progresses. I want to thank Roxanne for continuing to be a sort of a de facto leader of the Conservation Committee, and getting that stretch code business moving forward. I'm glad to see that you guys are going to be having a presentation on that in the next meeting. So thank you, Roxanne, for moving that forward. So we sounds like Mark Washburn is engaged, and everybody hopefully will feel good about trying to get those points, get potentially that extra state money, and have a more efficient and better building codes in place. So that's that. And also I wanted to thank Caitlin in particular for making sure we have the heads up about the community choice aggregation moving forward with the city of Ithaca. There was a webinar on that today that I unfortunately was not able to make, but I did notice that Rod Howe seemed to be saying that that they might be trying to give presentations to the local municipalities in the coming months. I don't know if that's something you guys would be interested in, if you would be interested in me trying to bring somebody in at one of these meetings down the road to talk a little bit more about community choice aggregation, because there will come a time probably in the next 12 months where Ulysses and other municipalities will want to make a decision whether to sign on to the plan that or sign on to the, all of the sort of things that the city and town of Ithaca are working on with regards to that. So it would be great if we could all be informed. So there's interest in that. I would try to make that happen sometime in the next couple of months.
Which we did have a presentation once.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually have stuff on that too.
Okay, yeah, but I wouldn't mind hearing it again. Since
Yeah, I've been to like a couple of presentations, and every time I get it a little bit more. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I think a refresher would be, would be very useful. So I'll reach out to you, Mark, and we can talk about a time when it works in the schedule and works for them also. That'd be great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
that's about all. I did. There was the one other thing we talked about at our last meeting was the Tree City application. But now that there's a standing tree committee, I would think that they might be taking the lead if there was going to be a reapplication for the Tree City USA this year. I'm not sure if that's should be in CSAC's purview now that there's a Ulysses Tree Committee. So I don't know about that, but we did mention it. I think it would be a great idea to revisit that ordinance and see if we could potentially make that happen for the future. But I also know it's a big process to sort of rewrite the local law. So I'm not sure what the appetite is for that or not, but
Great. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Mark?
No, but I have things that connect to it that I
Okay.
can either say now or when it's
Okay, why don't you
on
do
what
it?
I've been doing, but well, with regard to the Tree City, we would have to, Andy found out, maybe the board remembers, we would have to put more meat in our ordinance. It doesn't have some of the things that they would require in order to make it acceptable to meet what they want for Tree City. So that was the reason we got turned down. So, it's just a matter of looking at that. I think Andy, when we chatted a little bit at that meeting, and maybe he'll take it off to the tree committee, was going to look at that again and maybe draft up something that would marginally meet what they wanted, and then the board could relook at that and see if it was of value. So there's that. Regarding the stretch code, Mark attended the energy code enforcement training that you had to do in order to be up to date for the in terms of the Clean Energy Communities Leadership Program that we're part of, and what the state wants you to do anyway. And so I got an email from our coordinator, whose name is Gina Cassidy, when he did that, just because I had been working with her before on the CSAC stuff as the contact. And so we get 200 points if we submitted the verification for that. So I did that. So anyway, she wanted to just chat about all sorts of things, where Ulysses was, what else we could do. And so I had a really good meeting with her and a long list, and I had that list anyway. We just hadn't had time to move forward on it yet, but we can, and then we could, get towards being able to apply for another $10,000 or even $20,000 grant for energy related things pretty broadly. But she did point out again that I asked her about the stretch code, because the CSAC had started looking at that a little bit, and there was a little bit of a presentation. And then, COVID variants happened and everything dropped. And anyway, it was supposed to, using that as a high impact action was supposed to be gone as of December of last year, but they extended it to June 30th of this year. So if a municipality passes the New York stretch code by June 30th, then you get 1,200 points and $5,000, just like we did for the community campaign, without very much else to do. So, I mean, it's a good idea, and the New York State codes are gonna keep changing and updating. I went to a municipal summit webinar on this that was called Advancing Clean Energy Codes. That was by Sustainable Westchester and NYSERDA, and I think Mark also attended that because I sent him the notice on it, and he said, oh, I'm already registered, so I
yeah.
think he's interested in this, and I sent him another email today, but we hadn't reconnected about just chatting with him some more about this. So anyway, Gina said that they have, you know, a little presentation that she does, and Lou Vogel, as you might remember from Tatum, is the technical assistance that that NYSERDA has hired for our area, the southern tier. And so he and she could come and give us a little presentation, mostly we could ask questions. And so she told me sometime she was available, and one of them was March 22nd. So I emailed Caitlin to see if that was a possibility, and reached out to Mark to see if he could make sure that he could be here, because I think it's pretty key for him to be able to ask whatever questions. And also, you know, Dryden and Newfield have adopted this code. So like, if, you know, and so we could get some of Newfield's experiences as a municipality kind of our size in implementing it if we wanted. So, so Gina and Lou are tentative for the 22nd. I said I would confirm it
Yep.
tonight.
Why is
that-
it called
that are-
stretch? Why is it called stretch?
I don't know.
Because they're going above and beyond the
Yeah,
current.
Right,
energy
I
code.
guess they're stretching
Stretching
the
beyond
energy
Yeah.
code, but they're gonna keep, you know, somebody
It's
asked
supposed to
because,
meet and they expect this, the building code and the energy code to catch up with it. anyway.
right,
Yeah.
And so they're just.
right, and at the
Advancing
webinar, somebody asked, because they were saying pretty strongly the last time we had a presentation on this, that this is gonna be
In like 3
adopted by,
years,
that's
yeah.
right.
Right.
And so someone asked that at the webinar, and the nice sort of person just kind of stumbled and said, well, you know, now, you know, I think the stretch code as it's written now, there's not, they stopped saying they're gonna adopt that, but that they're evolving the code
Right.
Right.
to bring all these things in. So I don't know if they've changed that a little bit, but nonetheless, it's gonna be this stuff with the climate action council plan, implementation plan, and everything as that evolves, you know, it's all gonna be stuff that you need to do anyway. And they had this webinar was pretty interesting. They had people talking, they had code officers from different municipalities talking about how people reacted to it and what the issues were and everything. And so I'll be interested when I can catch up with Mark to hear what Washburn, to hear what his input and take on it was. But anyway, so I just wanted to make sure the board's supportive of continuing to, you know, move forward with looking at this, because it seems like a worthwhile thing to do. Yes.
Well, if you're in conversation with Gina, the thing I would be most interested in is that June 30th deadline. Does it go into effect? Does it have to go into effect for projects July 1st, basically? And the reason I say that is because we have contractors and property owners that are in the process of having design projects, but may not be going to building permit approval. And I want to be sensitive to, I'm supportive of moving towards stretch, but I'm not, I want to be mindful of not shocking people and then having to torpedo their projects because they weren't at building permits already.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that there's a public notification period that's sufficient.
Well, and I think in order to adopt it, you have to pass a local law. And so then we would have all of that public notification requirement level of stuff. So
I know, and I bet that would be my question, because even though the public notification, I mean, anybody who's built a house or done a major
So
renovation,
can we pass it and implement it? Choose the date of implementation
as long as it's before the 30th
of
of June.
June. Oh,
Yeah,
that's pretty soon.
yeah.
yeah. But I mean, it's
But I don't understand. I want to understand how
3 months from now.
what's the word? How much further does the stretch go than the current? And what, you know, how does that fit in with current building codes, and how much of an issue it could be for builders or.
Right, well, so
designers?
that would be, you know, what
They
would
answer.
talk
Right,
about.
right, right.
And there's a bunch of material that she sent me links to, because she got all excited about this, that I could send, so
Yeah, I'd
you
like
could look
to
at it
see it,
before
yeah.
the meeting.
Yeah. I'd like to see
And
that.
my take from listening to the webinar is it's pretty much mostly all focused on new construction, not renovations.
Uh-huh.
And it almost sounded like there's no difference between the current New York Energy Code and the stretch code with regard to renovations. But I would like to confirm that with him because that's a big question that
Sure.
people have, obviously. And they have all kinds of data that they've collected now since the last time this was introduced to us about how much on average it costs, it adds to new construction to go up to this level of code and
But it
all
has
kinds
to
of
be
things
that
like
if a
that.
building permit was issued under the current code, you can't go.
Yeah, no, I don't think
Changes.
so.
No, you
Yeah.
can't, but,
right.
but I also know that, and that there are property owners who will talk. I have done this in a different municipality, right? That we're talking about, we're failing to do this project, and you start putting the pieces together, getting your architectural drawings,
Right.
and depending on how we do it, I just want to be mindful of
Yeah.
doing this, and it's not that I'm opposed to doing it, but that's a question that I have is about, how it's gonna make a difference, and I think that the definition of what constitutes a major renovation, because when I was looking through the paperwork, it frequently when a major renovation occurs, it triggers a different level of scrutiny. For instance, with ADA accessibility requirements, depending on the threshold of your project and sizable nature, you have to make accommodations to making your property more, or your building more accessible, even if it's a building that predates ADA requirements. So, and I think so that's going to be good to find out from them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's find out.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be a moving target, someone's always gonna be doing a project, so you'll never do it if you just wait until
Right,
nobody's
right.
doing a project at all, but we
I
can
wasn't
certainly
suggesting
find
that.
out what. Anyway, you're supportive of getting more
Yeah,
information,
yeah,
having her
for
come
sure.
to the meeting, right? Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was related to the CCA, which I did attend that webinar today, the Community Choice Aggregation. And I had talked with Gina some about that too, because they're also assisting with getting out information and moving forward on that. They were the ones who sponsored the CCA webinar today. And there's a meeting on the 23rd of March that I think Rod Howe is running from the town of Ithaca for anybody, municipalities who are interested in knowing more about CCA, what they're doing, because they're moving forward, Ithaca town and city. And I don't know too much about the details yet, but to start the process of forming a CCA, getting an administrator, all the things that you need to do. And at some point, which from the things I've read is about a year out, maybe 15 months, maybe earlier, depending on the PSC, they will be looking to invite other municipalities in if they're interested. So I think it's a good time to learn more about
Right.
it. And so Gina sent me an invitation. She said they had me invite anybody who has interest in CCA locally. So for the 23rd. So I'm going to go to that meeting and learn more about
Right.
that. So I can keep everybody updated on that one, but it's evolved quite a bit from where it was the last time we heard a presentation, and that was quite a while ago. So yeah, so
Right.
that's all the stuff related to Mark's that I had for
Great.
later, but I said it now.
Thanks, Roxanne.
Excellent. Okay, I don't think we have any other chair reports present, so we can move on with the agenda. First up in old business, there is to follow up on our February 15th meeting that was held jointly with the Village of Trumansburg and the Town of Covert. At that meeting, we discussed the next steps of proceeding with a negotiation of an operating licensing agreement with New York State for the operation of the current Camp Barton property. It would not be called the Camp Barton property. But so before us tonight, we have a resolution that does two things. It's requesting state acquisition of Camp Barton and our intention to negotiate a cooperative agreement, operation and management agreement of the acquired property. This resolution was posted last Friday. Legal counsel wanted to make a small insertion, and so for those present, your copy then it's also posted online actually, but the red text is what our legal counsel wanted to insert. And so we have a memorandum of understanding, and this resolution would further allow us to go into negotiations. It's not committing any financial amounts at this juncture. There's no licensing operation agreement in place yet. This allows us to begin negotiations and appoint myself and Deputy Supervisor Rich Goldman as the continued liaison negotiators on behalf of the town, which is what we were previously to this. So I would move that we adopt the resolution as presented. Is there a second?
So I have a question on the, be it further resolved, that the second paragraph in the bottom, that they would collectively assume operational and maintenance costs. Who's assuming that? The OPRHP?
So
Or the town.
collectively, the town and along with at least one other municipal partner.
That
The
they would
intention is to collectively assume.
intend to,
Yeah, I see what,
Yeah.
Rich, I think the way that it reads, it's a little
because
confusing.
in
Who is
that they,
Yeah,
because they often, when I read it first, it referred back to the State Office of Parks,
right.
that they would collectively, but then it doesn't make sense because, and I thought the state is not doing any maintenance costs.
They're not.
they're-
No,
So
the they
then-
refers to the town of Ulysses along with at least one additional
All right,
municipal
so I think
partner.
it's not, it's a little unclear.
Okay,
Do you agree?
Yeah, I see what you're saying for sure.
You want to call they the municipal partners?
Yes, and that they, parentheses, we're just saying that the municipal partners collectively, yeah, that's all.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I did not wordsmith this. This is actually what came from from the state.
this is what they want.
Right.
Yes, because they are spending the big bucks. What they, in parentheses, municipal partners.
We're just saying that the municipal partners
Collect-
would collectively assume operational maintenance costs.
I think the state would be delighted to have us clarify that they are in
They're-
fact
they're
not
right.
agreeing
Yeah,
to it, so I don't
they're-
see any problem with that. So that the municipal partners would collectively assume,
Yeah,
okay.
I have another question about that same resolve, which is that it says the town of Ulysses, along with at least one additional municipal partner intends to do that. So what if, I mean, I guess, do you have information on the village, like the village is gonna also pass one of these? Are they definitely doing it?
Well, I
And
mean, I can't.
Covert was maybe not.
So the best information I have is the meeting that we were all in attendance at, and all of the board members there indicated their intention to go forward. So the village's municipal meeting is on next Monday. If I were a betting person, I would bet that it's gonna pass at theirs.
So my question is, because I know that they wanted this by March, right? We wouldn't necessarily have another meeting after this. In the outside chance that the village didn't decide to do it and Covert doesn't decide to do it, does it negate us doing it alone, or do we want it to be that way? Like, then you
Yeah, good
lose
point,
the
yeah.
opportunity totally. And so I'm just wondering about
Right.
that wording.
we're
there.
reframing it, is the state requiring two, or could we be the only one? I
We-
think he said we could be one.
Right,
Right, we can. I didn't want to presume, quite honestly, that the town board would want to be the only person, the only entity doing it.
I don't think we'd want to,
No,
but I think I would be willing to if it meant if not, we would lose the whole thing.
I think we need to think about it, and that's why I'm introducing this wording, because we're passing ours now, and then they're
Right.
passing theirs later, and they need this without us to have another go around, it sounded like, right? So,
I mean, what do
I'm
you
happy
think?
to axe that if you want to just go
or
ahead.
just
and-
think of a way to change this makes it sound like if we don't have one, then we're not in.
Mhm.
And so, and maybe if the board doesn't want to be, we shouldn't be, but I just want it, because of this weird timeline thing, and when everybody meets, I thought it was worth raising that as a question.
So I guess what we could think about is either modifying this or moving forward with, we will know at the end of next Monday evening whether or not the village is willing to participate. If they're not willing to participate, then it really would be just us, and we would have to, the negotiations with the state would have to change, and we would just have to pass a new resolution, although,
Do we have time for that? Like, when did they want it by? Did
no,
they tell you?
we're fine. They're happy with the speed that things are currently going. So they were not concerned about that part. So I think it's they knew that the covert meeting and the Trumansburg meeting were happening next week. So they weren't trying to rush us on that part. I just got the material
Right.
like 5 minutes before I had sent on the
Right.
packet.
So
So
I
it
was
was,
just wondering
the
if
11th
we have
hour.
another chance before
we would have another chance.
it has to go in.
Yes, and the
Okay.
reason I know that is because frankly, I think the local representatives on this project have felt so much pressure for this to be successful that they want it to be successful.
Okay.
So it's not, being pulled out from underneath us. But I mean, we would have to move next week
Right.
too. So do we want to change this language if you feel comfortable just going? Because actually, I think we would have to pass a separate resolution anyway, because this is just authorizing us to sign the MOU. And we wouldn't actually need to sign an MOU if we don't have any municipal partners.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
then it would just be us.
Yeah, I'm fine with this, but if it changes, I'm fine with us.
Okay,
So would we have to pass a new resolution if
would.
it changes? So we'd have to have a meeting
I
especially to
won't be
do
here
that,
next week.
yeah.
right?
I mean,
Okay.
I don't think it's gonna be an issue with the village.
No, I just am trying to
Oh, no, I
understand,
agree.
make sure that we get it right, and we also know what I guess we could talk about that if we really had to go alone, and you're right, it seems like if you're a betting person based on the conversation, the village is in, so.
Because this is the MOU to enter into negotiations.
Mhm.
It's not
Right,
the final,
Right,
this is the
right.
agreement.
Yeah, I'm
right,
fine with it.
okay, then that's
Okay.
fine, then, I just wanted to. check
No, I
on
appreciate that,
wording.
Roxanne. I think that's a very good point.
And the
Yeah.
negotiation that you and Rich would be doing, that's just for the MOU, that's not the whole way that the whole thing's gonna be run and everything.
No, it actually is. So we have the draft MOU is actually here and so we'll be signing this and then what we'd be negotiating is the operating licensing agreement. So how it actually, how it works in terms of the contract that exists between us collectively, municipalities or us and New York State, and that breaks down where the money goes. Rich, the SOTUS contract example
Yeah.
is what we'd be negotiating essentially a version of, but we would do the negotiations, but then it would come back to the full town board for review and approval. So,
So that would be everything that, the detail would be at the level that was discussed at that meeting with that people were throwing out, like, full blown, you have weddings, you have swimming every weekend. Are you talking about at that
no,
level?
no.
Okay,
So
just what the state wants.
it's so, and you know what, I can share with you. I know, I think, Michael, I can't remember if I sent you a copy of it last fall, but I apologize if I haven't, but there's a, actually it wasn't this fall, it was earlier this spring. There's a contract in place between SOTUS Point, the town of SOTUS and New York State that we have as an example. So I can share that with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
And you can see what it looks like. Basically, it says, this is what the state will be responsible for, not a whole lot. This is what, other than providing the actual property, and this is what the municipalities are agreeing to provide, which is we're gonna have liability
right, so
insurance.
it's like the bottom line that they were talking about,
Yes.
and then we have the flexibility as the consortium to decide beyond that, and that's a bigger process,
That's a
Oh, yeah.
bigger process and more fraught with danger
right?
if we don't agree on a philosophy
gonna
of
be-
how we move forward.
I mean,
And I was very sensitive to the guy who lives on Frontenac Road.
right,
If we open it up to everything we talked about at that meeting,
yeah,
that road can't handle it.
right,
There's no parking lot. There's no, I
Right.
mean,
I know.
so when do we envision together what we want this to really be? We started at that meeting, but we really need to
Right.
cogitate on it.
And I think that that's something that we should engage, like I don't know, advisory group of people, like to have a dialogue, really engage some of the public on, because there's a lot of interested public as we work through it, but it's gonna be a challenge, and I think we definitely need a person from our board that's really gonna take this on, as this is a major project for our town
It's
this
huge.
year.
Oh, it
It's
is.
huge, so.
Well,
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a fabulous opportunity. I just think we need to recognize that it's a big project that someone on our board has to feel comfortable
oh, absolutely.
taking the lead on, coordinating and dealing. I mean, we should involve a lot of other people, but still, somebody's got to be in charge.
I mean, I'm more of the philosophy that it should be lower impact.
Mhm.
Well, I think what we need to do is there are multiple levels. So we need to negotiate the whatever municipalities are participating, 1 to 3, need to negotiate with the state, because the reality is it's going to be about 18 months before we actually are managing the property. My goal and my hope would be that we can actually go after CSA funding with whichever municipalities are
What
part of
funding?
the consolidated funding that the Hunger Games, upstate Hunger Games funding, CFA, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Consolidated
not CSA, I'm thinking,
consolidated funding
agriculture.
application. It's like one application for a ton of programs.
see.
and I'd like to go after funding. They have, typically it's a July deadline to apply. But I would be interested in going after funding in order to actually do the conceptual planning for the park. In terms of mapping out our strategy and our investment and figuring out the phasing strategy. I would anticipate we're not going to be at a full-blown state park for a decade. And it needs to be phased in gradually. And in a way that the park can manage and the way the property can manage and the way that we can internally manage.
But
So,
I think whoever's gonna do that negotiation, we need as a board to come up with a philosophy of use.
well, I think that has to be jointly
Right,
done
yeah.
with whomever the
Right,
entities are,
right.
because if we develop one in a silo and they
No,
develop
no,
one in a
yeah,
silo.
we need to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. And
Even when us going to that meeting, we need to know what the board thinks. It's a very, I mean, we all want it
right,
badly,
it's really.
but it's fraught with a lot of
I know,
issues.
I was
Absolutely.
really feeling that.
Right.
And there's a ton of interest too, so I think we really need to be sensitive to that and keeping, people on board and feeling enough engaged so that everybody's not, and hearing some of the issues different people have, so. It'll be a trick to do it, but,
And the other part of it is, this is not in our town.
right.
Yes, in some ways that is from the person who will get the unhappy calls that
Right.
I can't say that I'm super sorry. But no, I think it is. And I will let you know too, that I don't know where COVID's gonna fall and we won't know where COVID's gonna fall until next week anyway. But I can tell you that I have had some early conversations with some of their members of their board about participating at a more robust level on youth recreation. Because regardless of what covert direction they decide to go in, we will need them to be a partner in some capacity because it's in their community and I want it, and if this property does move forward, I want it to be a benefit to their residents also. And it frankly might be just too high of a lift for them to come to the point of being in a three-way municipal agreement. But that doesn't mean they might not be interested. And they seem to be, and some of them seem to be interested in a lower entry point with maybe the youth commission and youth recreation.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of how the village and the town got to a point where we could even engage in
Right.
this, is that we've been working well there among other places, but.
Right. So, we have to vote on this.
It's a leap.
It is a leap. It is a leap.
But it's, as they were saying, it's kind of a once in a lifetime
An
opportunity.
opportunity, it
So
really
I
is.
think we need to leap in, but we just need to know that we're gonna
Yeah,
have
we're
to
leaping.
work hard on this.
Absolutely.
But thank you, Caitlin, for all the work you
Yeah.
did on this.
It has been a pleasure. This
It's
is just,
amazing that it's come
Yeah.
around to this opportunity.
it has. And so thank you very much. And so if there's no more discussion, I will call for a vote.
All right.
All those in favor? Aye.
Right.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I will make sure you get a copy of the SOTUS example, as I'm sure you'll think of things when you read through it that will be useful as we have it. And we will obviously keep you very updated on this project as we continue to move forward. Onto a less happy topic. So we have
We're failing.
So the second round of searching for a planner has failed. I did not, I'm not trying to negate responsibility, but I didn't set up either search. I did help recruit, and my networks are the ones who produced 2/3 of the candidates we interviewed. So unfortunately, that did not lead to a willingness.
And what was the reasoning why she wasn't taken?
Largely, it boils down to money and opportunity in a different location. So,
We can deal with the money, but we can't quite deal with the opportunity.
right. And I think it's also, every potential staff member has a trajectory professionally that they're trying to achieve, and then we might not, we just didn't, I don't think, land in the perfect spot. And so I think money was less of it. I can tell you what my proposed plan is moving forward. We basically are limited by civil service to the types of positions we can offer. So, and the two the one we have offered previously, not in this last round, but our last two planners were hired under the environmental planner position. As I told you before, kind of in the exit interview process with our previous planner, he basically said, yeah, and part of the reason is that the state hasn't offered the civil service exam for an environmental planner in a long time, and there doesn't seem to be any inclination to do it. But we don't know when they will next offer it. So when you can't take the civil service exam, you exist in this provisional status that is not preferable for employees. And our previous planner did not think that the job description under that position really matched the duties. It was much more of a regular planning position. So one of the things I've gotten feedback from Blixie, who has great ideas and lots of experience in HR, and she had a lot of suggestions, and I'm going to be following up with her specifically on those in terms of how outreach happened in the previous two searches, and or lack thereof. There were some places that we weren't advertising. We didn't advertise on Indeed, for instance. But it's a really tough hiring market in general. She led a library director search that failed, and they searched nationally. And recently. And so we're not in the we're not the only ones who are struggling to find the high quality professional staff that we need. So this is not unique to Ulysses, but I did do a survey, a survey of the salary ranges, and the salary ranges for planners in other municipalities in the town in Tompkins County run from about 65,000 to 95,000. So we were in the range of about 68,000 up to 70 was about where we were hitting in both what was budgeted and what we could negotiate for this year based on how much money we are unfortunately saving by not having a planner. So I think we're in the right amount range, but I wanted to talk to you about what kind of range you feel comfortable with, because we are ready to hit send on reposting, but I wanted to talk to you about the range. And the one thing, so one of the things that Blixie provided feedback on was in this last search, it's a salaried position, but it was kind of described in an hourly amount. So we actually gave an amount per hour, and she thought that was a real bad choice. Yeah. And instead she suggested that we just say it's a full-time, and we also offered a range of between 20 and 35 hours.
So I think we should offer it as a full-time at a price, not at an hourly rate. It is a professional position. So I don't think usually you would do hourly for that, right?
Do you normally post salaries?
Yes. We post the range on when you post for a civil service. Yeah.
I mean, this is critical that we get a planner.
Oh yeah, this is slowing everything
down. If anything in the last planning board meeting showed it, that we need a planner badly.
I wanted to raise the thought, I don't know if it makes any sense, and then you wouldn't have the funds to have a full-time, but a lot of the job is not planning. It's not what planners do. It's what zoning officers do, like all of the enforcement and all of that. And I know from a couple of planners ago that, that was just not the part of the job that appealed at all. And so we used to have a zoning officer before we ever had a planning position. And that's what the person did. They supported the planning board, they supported the BZA with the zoning regs and everything like that. And so, I mean, it looks to me from the Tompkins County Civil Service Rules document that we can only have a part-time zoning officer without some kind of major change in request. And so I don't know how hard it is to find part-time people versus full-time people, but
Well,
but I
Carissa
just-
just went through it for months.
no, I know,
Just
but,
went
well,
down
but with
the-
regard to this too, I don't know, like, if it's probably harder, but I was just wondering
Yeah.
about splitting that into a zoning officer that really does the enforcement and the thing, and then a planner that's really, they could also be helping the planning board and all, and help with the comp plan and help with some of this other, you know, moving forward the town, bigger picture stuff that planners are trained to do and like to do,
Well,
rather than
agree.
enforce zoning. And
Well, I
so
agree with you.
Was
I
Dar-
think that's
was
part
Darby
of
our
our
first?
problem is that the, yes, she was the, we created, for years, people had been pushing the town to
We
have a
just had
planner.
Alex, right?
Yes, we had Alex, and he was the code enforcement officer and the zoning officer.
Okay, then we
And he
added
was
Darby.
part-time with each, and it turns out you aren't allowed to pay the same person to do two part-time jobs in civil service. I got in a lot of trouble for that, but I just inherited it. But anyway, so yeah, so then it was only 75% time in the beginning, and I tried to actually get the Village of Trumansburg to go in with us and have them have the planner, and they said they didn't need or want a planner, so they didn't do that, but then eventually we were able to move it up to full-time.
Well, I think you raise an important point. What do we need?
Right, and
We do need.
we need a zoning
zoning-
officer more than we need a planner right now.
Man, we need both. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. No, we do,
Because I mean,
What's the chances of like, remember CJ and Randall, you know, like a firm like
Right.
that, I'm thinking of like Scott Whittam, maybe, I don't know if they do that. But, you know, we get, you know, like something's going on and we hire them, you know, to handle that, because like Roxanne was just saying, you know, we have this backlog of enforcement things going on, and we keep thinking, or I keep thinking of it as, okay, our zoning officer is gonna do that, but yeah,
But it's
It's
combined
more
into the
suited to
planner
St. Mark.
position, and we did that to make it
Yeah.
full-time. But Darby, you know, she didn't.
That
like that
wasn't what she
part
signed
of
up
But
the
we
for.
need
job, yeah.
somebody that also takes the planning doc, somebody talks to them and takes them to the planning board,
Right,
because it was chaos last.
no,
week.
but that's what you could look at it as a more of a zoning officer does that, and then we could hire a person to help with planning from a consultant potentially or something. You know, if we're gonna do the comp plan, we can get a consultant to help us or to help us with just general planning things. I don't know if that's a possibility, but it really does seem to me that those two things are very contradictory. Like you wouldn't necessarily want to be hired, would you, to have to go out and enforce all the zoning stuff? I mean, and so I think it's just a really different thing that people are trained differently and their personalities
Was
are
that,
different.
John was willing to do it, right?
yeah, and he said he only spent about 25% of his time on enforcement. The rest was demands on planning.
Well, but a
so-
lot of the stuff isn't really enforced, so,
It-
I
it's
mean,
not- it's
he
difficult.
could have spent more time on it than that, I think.
Well, I
I'm not
think-
criticizing him, but I'm saying there's a lot of enforcement
There's a big
stuff
backlog.
that you are bringing up that
Yeah.
comes forward.
Well, I think he was spending 25% because 75% of his time was being pulled to planning. So I think it was the balancing out.
Unless we had a lot of applications and
Yeah.
stuff in a lot of buildings, there was a lot of activity. So he was involved more in going over plans and bringing them to the planning board and things like that.
Right, but that could be viewed as working with the zoning as opposed to planning in the sense of
No, I
longer
understand.
range planning.
Yeah, that's,
mean-
well, there are levels of different.
Right, I'm saying it used to
Yeah.
be that way here and then it melded into the other way. So I was just wondering if, I don't know if it's easier to find somebody to, that's our immediate
Look,
need.
the deal is in the country, there are 11 million job openings and 6 million and 5 million people are out of work. So there's a gap of 6 million jobs that can't be filled. It's
Right.
not just, it's everywhere.
And I didn't get the impression with either the top candidate from the first search, the top candidate from the second search, that the enforcement was a concern of
Yeah,
theirs.
they were fine with it.
Yeah, so I mean, so my recommendation to kind of
Yeah.
balance the two, because I think you're raising an excellent point, Roxanne. My recommendation would be we repost the job tomorrow. And we could simultaneously be looking into and investigating whether or not we could outsource our planning services to another entity. I will tell you that we talked to the town of Ithaca last fall because the town of Ithaca had been very generous with lending us code enforcement support when we had a gap there. And they made it very clear that they had zero interest in touching our zoning because of how complicated it was. that there was no interest in a temporary planner coming. and-
Yeah, I
Right,
think they
but-
just didn't want to do it.
Well, but that's
Because
also.
our zoning is no more complicated than that, I think.
But it's a lot more complicated than a lot of communities our size. And I'm not making a judgment one way or the other. I'm simply
I
saying
think
that,
it's way too complicated. I agree with you.
okay, so thank you. Yeah, I mean,
I
that's
hear
another
ya.
Let's have a
conversation.
debate on something
No,
else.
I know.
That's
we
not
can-
on the
we can
table
look-
here.
We can look at that.
But my point, I guess, would be that if the person, if your job was primarily to be a zoning officer, where you understood the zoning and you, all of that, and you helped support the planning board to understand the zoning and the BZA to get the projects that come before you prepared in the context of the zoning and enforce the zoning, then that's what Ithaca didn't want to do. But maybe Ithaca would want to help us with,
Yeah, I'm not
the
talking
other
about me.
side of
I was talking
planning.
more of
I
a
don't know.
consultant.
But
Not
you're
another
gonna pay
town.
$200 an hour.
Well,
Right.
yeah, it might be a bad idea.
No,
it
I'm
might be-
saying-
I
realize
agree,
that,
it might
but-
be a bad idea, but it
Or an
might,
expensive idea.
It's expensive.
A good
not a
idea,
bad
but expensive.
yeah.
right.
But if we go through a job search and take advantage of Blixie, because I don't get the impression she was taken advantage of in a positive way,
Uh-huh.
with her expertise on a new search.
Right.
We could simultaneously be looking at developing
Yeah.
an RFP and looking for planning services from any number of
Right.
entities.
Yeah, and then if you get somebody on the hook, just let them know that, we need enforcement. Are they willing to go out and do?
Or we could search for a zoning officer too and see if
Uh,
someone applies and really wants to do that.
Well,
you know?
but our experience is we've had like 4 applicants in the last 6 months for this position.
Well, hopefully
Right,
the
no, I
job
know,
market
but
will
I'm saying
stabilize.
if you change what your focal tasks are, maybe it'll be a different person.
But you're saying under the county guidelines, we could only hire a zoning officer for half-time.
I think so.
So that's what we're currently allowed to do without having to go back and make the case for why we would need to change it and
As-
go through the
as
process.
a- opposed
Which
to
did
an
not used to
environmental
be
planner?
easy. I don't know
Or a
if it is
regular
now.
Yeah, I hear it's not.
regular
so,
planner?
Not.
yeah,
That
You
what it
gotta
is?
really want to do it.
We're not gonna use the environmental plan.
We-
No.
So what were you saying? We could only have a,
Half-time zoning officer, but we could have a full-time regular planner, right?
We can,
I don't know.
mean,
I'm
yes,
asking.
yeah, no, we can have a full-time regular planner.
they consider our position to be a planner or an environmental planner, it doesn't matter.
Yes, it doesn't matter. We can pick or choose from those
Okay,
two.
so then we're already approved at that.
I just
level.
think the job market is, I mean, you gotta, I would raise the salary range and see what happens.
What range what range does the board feel comfortable with?
say, commensurate with experience. If you get somebody that's, fresh out of Cornell, but
Yeah, I don't know. I think-
although, they're gonna be.
I think you should go to
commanding
at
salary.
least 75.
68 to
Yeah,
75?
yeah,
Okay.
and that's just me.
I think too is that I would love personally to have a part-time zoning officer and a full-time planner.
Exactly, that would be the best.
But
would
I
suggest
don't know
that,
if we
but-
can financially
Right.
do that, but I don't think we'll find a good candidate for a part-time planner and a part-time zoning
Right.
officer.
Well, that's the hard
And
thing.
that's,
I don't know if there's a way to have that, if someone actually wanted to apply to do that without making it seem like we don't take the job seriously by saying it could be part-time or
Yeah,
full-time. And we
but-
could say on the ad, part-time candidates considered or something. I don't know. We're looking for full-time, but we would consider part-time for the right fit or something like that and see. I don't know.
well, and there's something else to throw out there.
Very tricky.
Which be if we could find a good planning person and we're going to do whatever Frontenac Point State Park thing is, we're gonna need more internal capacity potentially to help do that. That plan, we could at that point scale to have that planner
Be a-
absorb some of that
be a
and then
project
hire an
manager or
independent
something.
zoning officer.
Right, and there's a lot of,
And
also,
swap
there's
things out.
gonna be, I think, a lot more even than there is
So
now,
we-
opportunity with energy and community, helping community with sustainability and energy things. There could be money and grants, and so having somebody whose
On
part
staff,
of their
yeah.
job is to help with that would be, Darby did a lot of that, like,
Yeah.
she helped a lot to get the $100,000 grant that we got and all. So, yeah, so there are things I could see a
Mhm. Oh,
planner doing outside of
So
the.
we can't have
zoning
a
officer.
full-time,
Zoning
coding?
officer? I don't think so.
We can't have a full-time, so we have a full-time code officer, that's no problem.
It
Okay.
isn't? Oh, I thought it had to be a half-time also.
No, we have so Mark's, I think, at 37 hours.
Oh, that's good. Well, maybe
Um,
they're not paying that much.
So, and then what?
And
And
why does the
then-
county get to say anyway? It's
Be-
our-
Because
Oh,
they're civil service.
because there's rules,
There are.
a lot of them.
Do not get me in trouble because I'm the person they're gonna yell at, via email or call, but,
I
so,
learned this all the extremely hard way.
so we are approved right now to hire civil service would be fine at Tompkins County level with us having a part-time zoning officer.
Right.
And we can have a full-time planner.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
So
Right.
we could, if we could hire somebody, we could, say if, as Camp Barton moves forward, we could shave off the zoning parts and end up and hire a part-time zoning officer separately. So we could end up with 3 positions where right now we only have conceptually 2 between code, zoning and planning.
What if we tried advertising for a part-time zoning officer just to see if we got, and a planner, just to see if we get applicants? Like if that becomes an option and,
well,
It
we
seems
don't have
really
in the
good.
budget enough money for a full-time planner.
no, we don't have to hire we'll see what we got. I mean, if you're gonna do a
Although
search.
we've saved so much money already, we're at 3 months.
Right,
maybe we do
I
have
know
enough
for a
money.
year. I mean, my thought is just if you're doing a search anyway, you don't know what's out there. Maybe if we
I
look
don't,
for both.
it can't hurt.
No, I mean, it's just time to, if we get applicants to interview them.
I mean, Kristen, you have any input on this since you've just gone through this to try to hire somebody? Have any suggestions?
Not really. I mean, I actually just emailed the 2018 recruiting that we did in case there's to
Oh.
Caitlin and Blixie, in case there's any other places on there that they haven't tried yet.
Good.
But I'm looking forward to having a planner because I feel like I get like 1 call a day with someone that wants information right at the time.
Yeah.
And the planner has to field those, and you were fielding those.
Yeah, so
Good.
now I'm like, I'm like, well, I can, they're like, can I talk to someone? I'm like, you can email someone, or, okay, let me try and see if I can help you.
So we gotta, I mean, we need to figure this out. I go to 75, do it, Roxanne said, I think that's fine.
I need a rate. I have no idea on a zoning officer of how much they make. I did not do that research. So do you
Oh,
want
I
me
don't
to
know.
do,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it would be maybe an hourly thing up to, or would it be, maybe it would be a salary, yeah, it would be better. But I have no idea either.
well, you tell, in order to post it, we would need
Yeah, we
to,
Well, do you want the zoning officer to be paid the same amount as the
You said
planner?
civil service too,
Yeah, it's civil service.
because it's
It
zoning
all is,
officer.
yeah.
And we're.
It's,
I think it'd be some, I think.
whether or
it'd be
not,
lower
it-
for a zoning
yeah,
officer.
you're still only allowed certain things, whether or not they're an actual civil service position or an exempt position, still governed by civil services
Mhm.
guideline rules.
Uh-huh. It's been a while since I looked at ours.
Yeah.
That it's in our list.
Why not? Why are you not reading this?
Yeah,
every
yeah,
night
that's right. You know,
before
when
bed?
insomnia, I'll get up
Exactly.
and start reading
I
it.
thought it was only a part-time, so maybe they're just allowing stuff.
Are you looking, Chris?
Maybe they're more flexible than they used to be.
I
It's-
can on my other computer. look at-
Crazier things
see
have
what
happened.
Other towns have advertised it for.
Okay. Are you thoroughly confused now? Caitlin?
No, no,
Sorry.
no, I just want to make sure that
Yeah,
I
sorry.
go into Wednesday, whatever day we're going into tomorrow.
No, I don't mean to make it more complicated. I'm just wondering, since we're in such a.
We have a blank
need-
slate.
Right.
So we can go in whatever direction
Right,
we want.
we
to.
have saved money, we have a crisis, like, I don't know if we even piece it, I don't know. Both of them, they have to be provisional for a while anyway, regardless of if they even took the test, because for 6 months anyway,
Right.
don't you? Test or no test.
Yep.
I think the reason we did an environmental planner, now that I'm thinking about it, is because that's what Darby was.
Was-
Right.
And so then we didn't have to hire her provisionally. She was a little reluctant to take a provisional 6-month
Yeah,
hire. And they allowed us to take it so that's how I think it started as
Oh,
an
okay.
environmental planner.
because I remember that she had an environmental science background.
Yeah, well, she does too, but like,
Yeah.
I think that both of those two things, and she was doing environmental planner work in Lansing, I think, before that, so. Yeah, anyway, it's complicated.
Well, I mean, if you're comfortable with 68 to 75 for the planning position, commensurate with experience, and then we can put, I would do a zoning officer, that comes out to roughly at the lower hourly rate, comes out to just under 31, or it comes out to about 31 for the 68, 31 per hour.
How much does the code enforcement officer make?
27, I want to say, off the top of my head. I could be
I
wrong.
don't think you'd want them to make huge more than that, but
I would say the zoning officer should hit between those two.
yeah.
So I would say we do half-time, which is 1,000 hours,
Uh-huh.
and you did
Yeah.
$30 an hour,
That's
that's
combined.
30,000.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Which
you
one
have
should I
to be
look at?
allowed to do
30,000
it.
for that position half-time.
Well, as we're,
So how about 30,000 for the half-time zoning officer? That would be 30,000 a year.
Right.
Or
I guess
maybe a
then you'd
little
have to
more.
come up with what are the qualifications, maybe you can find that from other ones on Tompkins County.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the town of Carolina is advertising for a zoning code and fire enforcement officer, 20 to 30 hours a week at $25 to $30 an
Okay.
hour.
Oh, great, thanks, Chris. So that's kind of
see,
reasonable.
Tompkins County,
Of course, they don't have zoning.
Part-time.
So-
Yeah.
the only
So-
requirement is graduation from
So
high school.
I declare there is no zoning violations.
So it's less.
have a lot of
so that means the
signs
job
and
has been less
They have a lot of
complicated.
signs in Caroline, no zoning. We don't need
Oh,
zoning.
I'm
right.
just saying that
Yeah.
that makes. the
That makes the
job-
The job
zoning
a
a
lot
lot
easier.
easier.
Well, less complex than ours in that respect, let's say. It's probably
No
not
to
in
204
easy.
pages, you know.
Right,
Yeah.
well, they have other things, but still.
So I think that's a reasonable idea.
So do you want to do 25 to $30 an hour, or 20,
I would do 28 to 32.
28 to 32? Okay.
And it's up to 20 hours.
Yeah. Half-time, yeah.
Yeah,
So the zoning code fire enforcement officer wants a bachelor's degree.
Hmm.
As opposed to the other one just wanted a high school.
mhm, okay.
Well, we have a fire guy, right?
We do.
Are those getting done?
Yep. He sent his
But it's a
annual
slash,
report.
so maybe you
Yeah.
could use the zoning description, slash fire. Not the same at all.
And we're saying 68 to 75
Yeah.
for planner, full-time. Okay, if you're willing to support that and
Much
the
more
budget
broad.
implications, then.
Or we'll just get, we might not
Yes,
get any
yeah.
Right, we
applicants,
might
and
not-
then they might
We
not.
don't, we
be
don't
good.
have to hire, we don't have to hire.
No,
them.
not at all.
No, we don't, we might, yeah, we don't
So we're
know.
gonna, we're casting a net.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
the thing is, we need to expand our thinking, I
We do,
guess.
we do.
Or try something, whatever, I don't know.
Try
I'm
something
not
different.
saying you haven't been thinking well, I'm just saying.
Oh, no, I brought it here for this very discussion, so I'm always reluctant to spend your money, the town's money, without having talked to you, so. But I appreciate that. Okay, so we can move forward on that.
This was done in March of last year.
Right, but that's just, see, those are all allowed, I could explain it.
Right,
right.
Every town can't do that, just
Yeah.
the ones that are approved.
So
Okay.
we are gonna move on to the Garrett Road speed study. I sent you the request that came through. And there was a petition. They're dealing with some safety issues in particular related to speeding, and Garrett Road is often used as a cut-through road in addition to being bisected by the Black Diamond Trail. And so I talked to our highway superintendent about this. He agreed that there are safety issues, there are road condition issues. He supports this. However, the reality is that New York State is at least 2 years behind.
Yeah.
And in my duration on this board, they haven't done a speed study yet on any of the roads that we've
Right.
passed resolutions on. So this basically goes to the county and asks them to submit it on our behalf to New York State DOT. So there's not a whole lot we can do at this juncture beyond requesting the traffic study. I'm gonna have a follow-up conversation with Scott to see if there's maybe improved signage that would help the situation. But the reality is we can take this step, but it will be a while before.
Well, we gotta-
between Houghton Road and Ferry City, is that what they said?
Yeah,
Mhm.
So right there.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
all right, well,
Do you have will someone make a motion on this?
I move that we pass the resolution.
Second.
For a traffic study to reduce the speed limit on Garrett Road.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I sent you the information. The next item on the agenda is the Recreation Department vendor information. So what we discovered is that there is not ever going to be an individual bill that triggers the procurement policy needing to have a vendor who's gone through the bidding process, the quoting process. But if you look at how much we're spending in a year, we are hitting that threshold. And so we moved forward with getting 4 sets of quotes for uniforms. 2 of the quotes did not meet the parameters that we set. So one couldn't provide the services. They don't provide all the services we need. And the second one, they also couldn't provide the services we needed, in part because we could not get on the same page with them about their commitment to actually fulfilling the terms of the RFP. So we ended up with 2 valid quotes, and we are coming to you with the lowest bidder based on those quotes. And so they would be our for the next year would be our go-to for uniforms. So is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
But I haven't been around, so I might have missed it. Who is this? Does this money get recouped when people pay the fees for, like, it goes back into the fees and
But
everything?
yes, and it was,
Because it's like $7,000 or $8,000.
I just want to make sure that we're seeing the income and expense, and this Blixie must be looking at it.
So yes, and we're going to do all of our financial review, including
Right.
on the Recreation Department at the next meeting.
Right.
We could have done it this meeting, but Mary's not here,
Right.
so we didn't want to
Right.
do it when folks were not
Right.
present. So yes, so for instance,
But
when,
shouldn't a number be in here of what we're spending?
no, because we're not spending any money with this. We're just saying this is the vendor that we're going to be going
Okay,
with.
we're not.
So we're not allocating any funds with this. This is
Right.
simply saying this is the lowest bidder for a year's worth of shirts for
All
teams.
right.
And so then you'll see the individual bills coming
Right.
through, and none of the
Okay.
bills is individually that big. And I can tell you from personal experience that when you pay for, say, basketball, part of the fee from the basketball
Goes to the
program
shirt.
goes to purchasing that shirt for the player.
Okay, right,
So yes, we are recouping that money.
okay.
Do they all have the town of Ulysses seal on them?
They do not.
No, okay.
They would cost more.
For sure.
4-color.
Exactly. But
Seal.
if you want to
Right.
throw in some money for
Yeah.
each shirt, we could be a sponsor, but right now they're paying for themselves.
All right.
So, okay, any further questions? Okay, then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And do we have a name? Are we like the Ulysses Marauders or something, or?
The Marauders.
Yeah, I don't know. What are we?
It just says Trumansburg,
This is
so,
all new, we
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
talk about this when we took the program
That's
over,
right, we
so.
didn't.
well, I would love to invite you to youth commission
Okay.
because we could have these conversations. Youth commission's fun because we have good conversations there on nice topics. The next up is rescheduling the all staff preparedness meeting. It was originally scheduled in the organizational meeting for March 30th. And they've asked to move it to April 19th, but because it was passed to happen on that particular date in the organizational documents, we need to have a resolution to move it a few weeks later. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, and then the next item is to appoint our newest wonderful board member to both cyber and IT and to CSAC. And so to serve as a board liaison to those two groups. Is there a motion to, I'll make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comment, discussion?
Yeah. Just related to this and related to the planning board we just did, if we can have a review of the board appointments,
Uh-huh,
that maybe when Mary's back,
Sure.
we can go through, so
Yeah.
so I was going through, I'm like, okay, am I shirking any duties here? And I was trying to go back and
Right.
see, what did I
Give
agree to?
Roxanne some-
And what am I
Right, well,
not
I'd like
doing?
that, because then we can look at what everybody,
Right,
and
and
we're
then-
taking on some new big projects and
Right.
stuff, so we can really look at where, how everybody's
Yeah.
skills are best used and who
Yeah.
has the time for
Right.
what now. And yeah, that would be great. I'd like that. I'm happy to take on these things, but I would also very much like to do that. I don't know, March 22nd is getting
March
busy,
22nd.
but maybe
yeah.
we could still do
Just,
it.
it just feels like the year is
I
getting
mean, if
busy.
everybody
It's more
just
busy
looked
than I
at
expected,
it,
so.
it shouldn't take that
Yeah.
long, I guess.
And it's in our organizational minutes. So
Right.
it's actually,
It's this it's table, it's on pages like 13 through 15. I was
Mhm.
reading it over. I was reading the whole organizational, which is like
Yep.
37 pages.
So that's my only comment on this resolution.
Okay,
I
well,
support and agree with that.
Let's vote.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I guess that's not me, but sure.
And then I am very pleased, but not as pleased as the town clerk to make a motion on an authorization for the pay rate for a deputy town clerk. Authorizing a rate of pay of $20 per hour for 20 hours a week for the recently appointed deputy clerk, Barbara Bennett. So I move that. Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor, or I'm sorry, any discussion?
is she permanent?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So I'm in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Okay, so,
I had one other question regarding the appointments and everything,
Uh-huh.
looking at all of that. What about the folks like, I know Kate Darfler, for example, had applied to be on the CSAC, and there was some thought, has anything happened with that?
so we were just talking and the emails went out today about setting up the interviews for planning board. So we have not set up the interviews for CSAC.
For alternates.
I was just gonna say that I don't really think you need to interview her. She's been going to the CSAC
Right.
meetings. She's the EMC liaison. She writes the green scene. She contributes a lot to every one of our meetings, and our whole committee was
Since it's a committee and not
actively
a,
in favor
not a policy-making. thing
Yeah,
like the planning board.
Oh,
of
not like a
appointing
planning
her.
board, you
So,
mean?
I mean, I
What?
don't think,
Not like a plan.
Not
I
like a
just don't know what you'll get out of interviewing
Yeah.
her, and you have a lot of other stuff backed up, and so a person like that, I think
Oh.
we should just appoint them because they want to volunteer, and
And we
they've
don't have-
already
do we
been
have any other people who
volunteering.
said they wanted to be on?
And
so-
we have actually the CSAC has 2 open spaces, I'm pretty sure. so
Oh, well, we did not know that there,
Right.
I didn't realize there's a second one. We can
Well, I'm
advertise
happy.
There
that.
might even be 3.
Well, we should figure out
Because
how
I'm
many we
not
have
on
open
it
and-
now, so I think there are 3. Because there's a 9 total, and I think there's 6 people now, so.
Okay, well, we can find out how many exactly, and we could do the appointment in the next board
Okay.
meeting.
But it does
Yeah.
leave space, even if you just appoint her, and she's been doing the work. In fact, we all said, Kate, why don't you just become a member?
Right, right.
So,
What-
yeah,
I don't know, off the top, what did Mark and Kate switch on?
the EMC,
Okay,
the Tompkins County EMC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, well, that would be great.
Yes, Mark?
I'm the Ulysses rep now, and Kate is the Trumansburg Village rep, in case that was unclear.
okay, yeah, I remembered something about that.
And do you have applicants for the alternates to the planning
We
board?
do,
Yeah,
we do.
Because I just remember Linda volunteering at the,
she had volunteered to be
Right.
the alternate.
and I don't think she needs to be interviewed again since she
Right.
was just the chair, but, so I'm just saying you could probably trim down. Or
Yeah.
whoever does the interviews could sort of trim that down some, because some of these people are known.
Yeah, well,
entities.
we have a couple, right?
Mhm. Yeah, right now I think we have 3
Yeah,
actually,
so
so
just in terms of process. I think
Mhm.
we should
And the
be-
do you have BZA?
They're
we have
full.
1 for
Yeah,
BZA,
BZA.
and we have only 1 opening for the BZA.
Mhm.
So
Why do we have an opening for the BZA?
we didn't have a fill for the second alternate.
They haven't approved, we haven't approved the second alternate.
Right, no, there's the second alternate opening. We have not interviewed anybody
So I
for it.
didn't even know we had an opening. for the second.
Right.
Do we have, I thought the planning, the BZA didn't want a second.
I don't think the
alternate.
VCA had any alternates.
They do.
listed, Not in the
Yeah,
organization.
Tom-
Tom
Tom
Phillips
Butler.
is the,
Oh,
is the alternate.
oh, right,
Right.
yeah, one, yeah.
Well, they've never expressed that to me, but I don't know if that's really the,
Well, all right, well, if we have another opening, then we should appoint somebody.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Good, anyway.
and then it's a matter of getting a quorum. Making sure there's quorum,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
Well, and also bringing people
People up,
along
right.
and
Yeah.
getting more people engaged. It's ways to become
Right.
familiar with the town government.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so why don't we move on to, we don't have any staff reports. I mean, we don't have any staff in-person reporting. We did have staff reports provided that were posted on the website also. Let me know if you have any questions for any of my folks. Yes,
Highway superintendent, just I got his report, but it was more related to what's going on with fuel prices.
mhm,
And if they stay like this, what will happen with paving? I know we don't know that yet. But if he's promised to do X miles of road, and if oil and stone goes, who knows how long this is gonna go on? If we just keep that on our radar scope, I don't know what we would do if he,
Well, we ought to plan for it, because it's definitely gonna be here for a while. It may not be 130 barrels, but it's gonna be 95 a barrel, which is more than anyone
Right.
anticipated last year.
yeah, well, but when that happens, he said he's gonna pave X miles for X dollars.
Right, and that won't be accurate.
Does he just do one side of the road or something, or,
which side would you prefer?
yeah, my side?
Okay.
So that's just something projecting out there, and then as it affects his fleet,
Mhm.
right? Thankfully, we're getting out of the plow season. And
Yeah.
if he
No,
can
it's a
kind of
good
keep us
point.
abreast of that,
It's a good
if he
point.
gets a load of fuel and all of
Yeah.
a sudden his bus is fuel budget or something.
It is a good point, or just to trigger him to project a little ahead if it stays this way,
Yeah,
what might we have?
yeah,
to
like his
take
next
out,
report or something, if he
Mhm.
sees something.
Or what
going on.
else might we
Yeah.
need to look for in terms of funds if it absolutely is necessary? or whatever,
Well, I'm
just
talking
keep
to
it
him
as a priority.
on Thursday, and so I'm happy to share these issues with him and have him respond.
Yeah.
And I'm
It
sure-
doesn't have to be a special thing, just in his
Yeah.
next report, if you
Sure.
can kind of,
Yeah,
And when are we, I'm sorry, the ARPA funds, when are we gonna talk about that?
First meeting in April, we're gonna do financial review, and then first meeting in April is gonna be ARPA,
Okay.
so.
the financial
maybe
reviews,
we pay
the
for
22nd. Okay.
fuel with it.
I'm thinking some of those funds, we may have to pave the roads with.
Yeah, good Lord, I've almost lost the front of my car, a couple of them. I think
You can't spend our ARPA funds in Ithaca though. So
No.
just so you know, I'm saying no to that one.
And Lyman and a couple of fillings fell out when I went through some of those.
Oh,
Good Lord.
Oh, in Ithaca, the roads are terrible.
Oh, they're really
Buffalo
terrible.
Street, Stewart Avenue
Yes,
Stewart Ave
is-
going to Cornell.
is the worst.
yeah.
I could tell you the backstory of how those bricks got there, but I'll have to wait for another time when we're not in a town board meeting.
That
I
would be interesting, because they
know
have
the
no-
person responsible.
they have
for
no
that.
respect for those bricks anymore. They just
Right.
fill them in.
I'll pass that on. Krista, was there anything you wanted to highlight in your report?
I'm thrilled that I'm gonna have a deputy.
When, did she start already or
It's
when?
gonna start tomorrow.
Oh, great.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I am not going to go deep into mine. I was just going to say a lot of a lot of what was covered has been covered in bits and pieces. I wanted to make sure that you were aware of what was going on in the planning office. I will back up what Carissa said, that there's a lot that Carissa in particular, and that I and the staff are doing to shore up the absence of a full-time planner.
Mhm.
And for the foreseeable future, when the planning board has any action in front of it, we will have legal counsel present to effectively staff that planning board. Because I'm a planner, at least by training, even though I don't practice in the same way, it's not appropriate for me to staff the planning board because of what my role is and what
Right,
their role is
right.
in keeping those two things separate without undue influence and participating in that process. And so the legal counsel will be there at their next meeting on the 15th, and is going to make sure that procedure and process is moving appropriately. Some of the problems are, in fact, that beyond the planning board. Some of the fact that what is written into our zoning and what is written into state law are sometimes in conflict with one another. An example being, in our zoning code, it says that for a minor subdivision, it's at the purview of the planning board to decide whether or not to hold a public hearing. State law requires a public hearing for subdivisions, regardless if they're major or minor. And so in the absence of a planner, some of these issues are becoming more apparent because people are trying to read our zoning and do the meeting simultaneously. And so I think having, at least until we have, and we can pay for this out of the line if we ever needed to adjust legal costs to come out of the planner
Plan we
line,
don't have.
because we don't have a other staff member who can
Right.
reasonably do it. So I think the planner is going to, or the lawyer is going to provide some consistency and continuity. And actually what we're in discussions with both the planning board members and with legal counsel is developing developing effectively a script for how to walk through some of the routine activities that planning boards undertake. And I think that would be would be a very helpful document for current planning board members, but also because we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel and figure out how to do this with every new planning board and as with leadership changes and things like that. So we're talking about doing that. And then, we talked about, the financial overview of 2021 will be at our March 22nd regular meeting. And then we're going to be discussing ARPA funds more in depth at April 12th. We already have earmarked funding connections to ARPA funds in the 2022 budget, as we discussed last fall. So we're going to call those out and then show you what other money is available and have a discussion about potential usages of that.
Okay.
So that's what's going on here. And are there any other reports?
Well, I guess it's not a report, but it relates to what you were just saying about the planning board and training and all. So just because I was on these other webinars that were talking about Department of State, I was also on one about energy and the comprehensive plan and clean energy and all. And then they were talking about support that for planning comes from Department of State, support for energy comes from NYSERDA. But anyway, I looked up and there's a whole New York State local government training
Yeah.
section for planning and for zoning and BZAs. And so like there's an online interactive training course called Planning Board Overview. That's an hour and a half. And they're just web online things, and they all meet the 4 hour a year required one. And then they have a whole list of planning related resource documents, including things like a step through. And then there's also the New York Planning Federation has a whole bunch of online things that also meet this 4-year requirement. And there's lots of, interesting topics from the basic function. And there was another one that the Department of State had, which was, the planning board and the zoning board of appeals overview. And then there was one that was how the two are different. And so I think in the meantime, especially for the really new members, we should encourage them to do some of these. I can send you this info that I lifted off and think about that, because then at least they're getting some sense of how things have to work. There was one on minute taking for the BZA and the planning board, like what needs to be included. And
Why don't you
what's
send
important.
that also to Pete Angie?
Pete already has received that.
Yeah.
So he actually received that in January. And then I resent it. Michael sent it to me.
The online training.
The 1.5
outline?
hour overview. Yep. So he
Right.
received a new link to that.
Well, there's a whole
last
bunch of
week.
other ones too. So I mean, I think that maybe we should really encourage them
Definitely.
while we're waiting to have formal training from our attorney.
Because they
and
have to do
everything
4
else.
hours a year anyway.
Right, and so
Right.
it seems like it's a little bit of a really needed thing right now, so
Yeah, it
maybe
is, yeah.
people would start getting on the same page. And so the other question I had related to that was the attorney until you get a planner, and I'm just wondering about the BZA as well, because I mean, the BZA actually has legal ramifications to what they do. And, your attorney isn't really supposed to tell them what to do, but they might need advice to make sure that
But, well,
they understand that they're doing the right thing too, because they don't have the support either, so.
But if issues come up, they know to call an attorney, right?
Well, I don't know, but we might want to reiterate to them that this is like what we're having in place until, is that if you,
You're right, you're
if you
right.
So
have
they
a
have an attorney on
question.
theirs.
You're David Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you
Yeah.
might want to
But he's
also
not the
have,
town's attorney.
No, he's
Right,
not,
yeah,
but I think,
yeah.
yeah, he's got the
Oh,
mind.
yeah,
that-
this, and there was a little pushback from some of the planning board members with the assumption that that it was a jab to them in some way that legal counsel is gonna be present. And I had to say that this is our fault, not your fault. You should be staffed. Like, this is complicated. And the fact that you are trying to interpret our zoning code in the middle of a meeting is hard. It is hard for professionals. It is not a job I would personally want to do in the professional sense. And so this is meant to be supportive of you as you're working through effectively the rituals of our town law. And so I'm happy to offer that to the BZA as well. I'm glad the board seems supportive of legal counsel being there. The BZA is not meeting this month, so it would be for the April meeting.
or just even, I mean, the BZA, the people on the BZA, as I understand it, have been together, have more
Longer,
experience.
yeah.
And the chair, the former chair is still on, and then the new chair has
Yeah.
been doing it for a while, so they might not necessarily want or need it, but just to have them know that they could get it ahead of
Yeah.
time might be good.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Okay,
Absolutely. Any other board updates?
I did the Association of Towns meeting.
oh, yeah,
Right.
thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that was interesting. It was a few hours, couple hours on Sunday, and all day Monday, Tuesday, and then they had
Oh,
the delegate meeting on Wednesday morning. It was really refreshing because Governor Hochul came on, Schumer came on, all of our top leaders. Tish James?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really neat,
Attorney
It was like,
General,
oh.
the attorney
Yeah, so
general.
that was real fun. It was, they're all so positive and,
Right.
and really, happy with where, New York's going. And Schumer's always fun to listen to.
Yeah.
He's a great speaker. And he's like the old grandfather there. So, yeah, anyway, that was fun. So thank you for letting me do that.
Anytime, or have your eyes recovered from that much screen time?
Yeah, it was, you just go down and rinse my eyes down.
Are there any
during the break.
highlights you want to share?
The Monday morning was that opening session with like kind of the state of New York, and then had that group, and that was like 2 hours. Sunday afternoon was introduction for all the resolutions that we're going to vote on Wednesday. So it gave you some of the history behind them and why they were what they were.
Yeah.
So just spent some time going through there. It was business meeting for the Association of Towns, their annual budget, and what they have and where they're going. And then Monday, Tuesday was training sessions. So I've got one more class I've got to do for a certified town official.
Wow.
And so they didn't have they only had one justice class and I needed two. So I get to sit with Judge Dresser here,
Oh,
and they're going to allow me to do that for the last training.
all
So
right.
I'll have my badge like Carissa has.
Do we have to give you a raise or something?
Oh, yeah. And yeah, we'll
Or
have
be
to
more
introduce that.
deferential
Yeah,
to you
it's
or
just,
something? Get a
it's
special
a,
hat or
it's a
something?
yeah, well, a badge, So, yeah, it's a great learning experience. I've got to get the training in 3 hours in 10 areas. And so there's some things in there that, I want to take that because it applies to what we're doing now or what we're going to be doing.
Mhm.
And I couldn't take them because I needed the certifications over here, but it's great because it's got, clerk, supervisor, planning, zoning, code. I forget, there's 10 of them that you
Okay.
take this distribution in.
Cool.
Justice, they got law.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
It's,
you.
if you guys have time to do it, I would, encourage you
Well,
to
good.
try one of them. So anyway, thank
All
you
right,
for letting me do
yes.
that.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. So upcoming events, just to keep you on the track, the MLK celebrations, to my best of my knowledge, has continued to be scheduled for April 30th. And then we have
April 3rd.
April 3rd, I'm sorry. Yes, not April 30th. I apologize. It's getting very late for me. So we can move on to approval of the minutes. We had minutes for that were shared last week for the February 8th special town board meeting, the February 8th regular town board meeting, the February 11th special town board meeting, the February 15th special town board meeting.
So
So-
move to approve the minute.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining, obviously, since I wasn't there.
Okay, so budget modifications. So I provided those earlier today. Michael, here's, no, that's not yours. This is yours for
Oh.
the vouchers. So you're gonna be seeing a lot more budget modifications over the course of this year than you're used to in previous years, and this is largely because the 2022 budget was designed to have less fat on it. And the less fat means there are much slimmer margins. And so where the slimmer margins, less fat is so you have, the budget is a more clear reflection of expenditures or proposed expenditures. But it does mean that when there's increases and decreases, that there's not that extra padding. So budget modifications are going to be a common thing. I am happy to provide more information on any of the ones that are listed. Just as a quick overview, the A fund budget modification refers to how we ended up paying for cyber insurance. And what we agreed to do at that meeting was to take the amount out of the line that we created to hire an IT consultant. This does not mean we are not hiring an IT consultant, but we discussed when we did this move around that we may use ARPA funding to hire an IT consultant to put us in place to bring our town systems into the 21st century. So that's related to the A fund budget modification. The DB fund budget modification is referring to workers' compensation. Michelle included a note. We are not over budget on workers' compensation, but workers' compensation funds are spread between 5 different funds. And we budgeted in the fall of last year, but we didn't get our quotes until the end of the year. And so we needed to adjust, and workers' comp is based on the salary of each individual. And so we just need to move some money around between the essentially workers' compensation lines between those 5 different funds. So that's what the DB fund refers to. And then I'm sure you'll remember from my previous summaries, because they're, so exciting, that we budget. There are a lot of very specific lines in the water district.
Like, what about the HSA contributions?
So we're moving it around from, that's where the decrease is happening and the increase is happening. The reason it's coming out of the HSA contributions in this line is because we had budgeted for a family plan, and a family plan is not being used. And so we have extra funds in here. So it's staying within the DB fund.
Right.
But if you look at workers' comp over all the 5 funds, we're still under budget.
Okay.
But we can't take from another workers' comp line and put it in here, basically. So the budget modifications for the water district simply refer to increasing the supplies. So
if I could, as you go through the year on that District 3,
yes.
to take it out, these numbers aren't that big,
Mhm.
and to take it up to the hundreds may be annoying, and you may want to just put it into another pot again, because you're buying a little of this and a little of that. And if anybody wants to know, you can just go in and look to see what it was. If it's a wrench, a meter head or whatever. And this might be causing more work for our finance people.
Well, I can guarantee you it is, but it came out of the board wanting to be very clear and precise within Water District 3 about how money was moving. So
well.
this is the staff time. This does take staff time. So I would
Right.
be,
Why though? Why did the board want to know at that level?
that predates me. So I
Yeah.
don't.
Okay.
So, It's just something going
We
into,
didn't, never
This-
used to do it at that level.
Right, now,
so
keep
I
it
was
in
just
mind as-
wondering what changed.
as we're
Yeah,
creating the 23 budget, we might want to just pull that back
Yeah,
up.
Okay, if I think you would, I can hear cheers at a
Okay,
distance
yeah, good.
from our financial.
Yeah, because they do a
Folks,
great job, and
I
I just
would
would hate to
support that, yeah.
burn their time up doing,
Right.
you know,
Doesn't
I mean,
seem
$500 is, you know, when we have a
useful
$3 million
or
budget is,
necessary.
yeah.
exactly.
You're just saying you don't want to review board budget modifications, and I hear you, I'm hear you, and I.
well, this
appreciate
takes
it.
time for them to put this
Oh,
together.
it absolutely
I mean,
does.
we're looking at one piece of paper, but
Well,
I
and
mean,
moving around $500 at a time like that just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me.
All right, I move the budget modification.
second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then moving on to payment of audited claims. This is where your little short sheet comes in handy. Resolves that the Ulysses Town Board has reviewed and approved payment of claims for the HB Fund Cemetery Bridge Replacement Project. Voucher 37 in the amount of $4,707.42, and all other fund vouchers numbered 73 through 113 in the amount of $201,444.62.
So moved.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll just abstain from that too, because I haven't been on. Looked at that yet, but I will
Okay.
by next time.
So is the
I
cemetery, is
trust
it
you, but I just
there-
don't think. I
looks like
should
there's
put
gonna
on
be one
something I
more
didn't
payment?
look at.
coming?
Yes, yep.
Because it
And
looked like it was really close to being 100% billed.
it's, and the only outstanding we're left on cemetery is the landscaping.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, but
Michelle
the-
had that in her.
Yeah, the
report,
4,000 was the professional services though.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's the hard part is closing them out so they don't bleed us to death.
Exactly. Let me tell you, I'm looking forward to that being done so I can put Michelle to use on
Oh, good.
Camp
Okay.
Martin.
Perfect.
So,
Okay, privilege of the floor.
yes. Is there anyone from the public who would wish to address us?
Linda,
Linda?
Linda, yes. Hi. I think, going back to the conversation about the search for a planning manager, I think bringing a zoning manager in is a great idea, given the difficulty in finding someone that is mixed, kind of a hybrid of the two positions, because when I reflect on the work, the work that I was doing, a lot of what John Zupko helped me with was really understanding the zoning and the implications of the zoning that Ulysses has in place. So if we hire somebody that's strictly looking, whose role is to be a zoning person, that would be the expectation, that he would know zoning cold, and could bring that to the board. That, in my observations of last week's meeting, was part of the problem that folks were having. No one took the time to look at the zoning before the meeting and really understood what the ramifications of what they were doing were and what they needed to include, plus some other process questions, which, poor Pete really is working at a handicap without having, somebody like John there or Greg there to help coach him through the process. So, but just to have somebody that was certain on the zoning would be a good thing. I had no idea that that was a possibility, before this, to have somebody strictly for zoning. So I think that's a great idea and may help resolve a lot of the pressure that we're under in getting subdivisions and all of that kind of thing done right now. So good suggestion. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Linda, appreciate it. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to address us?
Hey, guys. I thought it was a great idea to consider possibly the $100 an hour bill to pay a consultant. And I'm sorry, my dog's going nuts right now. Also, I see a couple extra seats here at the table. Are there extra board member? Are there board members
Roxanne.
required?
Excuse me?
We have one absent.
We have
Okay.
4.
Anyway, we really tuned in to see the Camp Barton discussion. Hey, buddy, take it easy. We're here to help, I guess. Other than that, I would suggest a detailed trade study regarding the planning board, because there are engineering firms right downtown that could take an hour, look at your planning requirements. They know the codes, they know the zoning rules. You might save a lot of money. I would recommend a detailed analysis on that, and I'd be happy to take that on. And I'm also on my probably 3rd glass of wine, or maybe 4th, but anyway, you guys ran late and very professional, and it was good to see you.
Thank you.
That's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. My wife had to step out, but also very accomplished. If you need some help,
What's your wife accomplished in?
she's the chief engineer at Lockheed Martin of all the helicopter programs.
Well,
Wow.
Retired, looking for a project.
okay.
And you can see her sitting right next to this guy right there.
I might add, my son's probably using one of her products.
He probably has, and I can see myself as the grounds manager for Camp Barton.
All right.
Great.
I also put a vineyard in, was a winery manager. We owned our own winery. We are hardcore engineers from way back. And we're looking for a project, so if you guys need help, let us know.
Thank you.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Keep in
Thank
touch
you.
with us.
Later.
Thank you. Okay,
All right,
I think that exhausts our public.
all right. Move
The
for.
exhausted public.
The exhausted public. What I will tell the public is we are going to go into executive session. We'll be taking no action. We will come out of executive session and adjourn the meeting. So you're welcome to hang out if you want, but if otherwise, the rest of the exciting meeting that will be me adjourning will be posted on YouTube as part of the process. But so do I have a motion to move into executive session?
Motion for executive session.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.